So around about last spring, we drug the old Buick out and fixed that rattle in the engine. And prior to that, we pulled it out and got it running, cleaned up. The intention was to get the thing running and driving and be able to use it, you know, kind of as a daily beater kind of thing. And then here it sits. Pretty annoyed at myself for letting her sit like this. Pretty much any time this thing sits for a while, when you start it back up, that floods. So you got to do a little tappy tap. The float gets stuck in the down position. It's got an old battery in there that's pretty geriatric. I would like to crank the thing for a minute, you know, and let it get some oil moving around, but at the same time, we don't got much battery. So we'll just go ahead and take a chance. It doesn't like to start unless it's in neutral. So I got a new ignition switch. Let me put her in. I guess I'll turn that on. That should be neutrals. I only gave it a little shot of gas, so we'll have to reprime it. She hasn't started in probably 4 or 5 months. And it's about 40 degrees outside right now. There we go. Now I gotta go over here and keep it from flooding. She ain't clattering. The alternator bearing is shot. That's another main reason I didn't want to drive it. Sounds terrible. Well, I'll pull it around to the shop and we'll get busy. Well, that's better. I'm definitely going to give her a wipe down because, well, you can ride on the dirt. If you heard that, she's got a pretty good rattle going on right up there in the right front. Maybe a spring has broke on the brakes or something, but it's pretty loud. It's like clunk, ka-clunk, ka-clunk. Not happy. So let's go over the checklist of what we need to do to it pretty quick, and we'll let her warm up. Gave the old tailgate area a wipe down so I can stick my checklist to it. Check the old vintage 1986 license plate. I'll be saving that. There's actually 2 of them behind it, so we'll find out what that's all about, how old those plates are. I've got a brand new one for it. She's insured, ready to go. You ever see a car and you're just like, hey, that one's for me. You fall in love with it. That was me with this one. Doesn't make any sense. It's a $300 parts car when I got it, but I'm in love with the old girl. I'm sure some of you guys can relate. Well, here's the checklist. Roadkill style, of course. So we've got, in no particular order, wash the car. That way I can not get dirty every time I touch it. We need to adjust the brakes and figure out what in the world's clunking up in the right front. We need to install an ignition switch that's mounted on the column down by where your toes go. We need to rig up a choke. We're going to do that. The alternator so it don't lock up and shred our belts in the radiator. Battery cables because, well, duh. At some point we need to check the timing because it acts a little different when it's hot and cold. I'm sure the timing chain's completely worn out. We need to replace a few studs and put a full set of lug nuts on it, which I already have. We need to check on a transmission leak. It was leaking profusely when I first got it going, but it seems to be sealed up pretty well now. It sat for 4 months and didn't really seem to leak anything. Plug wires. We need to check the wiring. Like the tape is melted off and flaked off of a bunch of the wiring in the engine bay, so we got some hot wires that are factory taped that no longer have that on them. And we need to change the oil. She's bleeding. Kind of looks like transmission fluid. Might have to eat my words from earlier. So we're not getting any rattle here, but I didn't spin this yet, so we'll find out together. But this side is where the noise sounded like it was coming from. Sounds like it might just be a loose wheel. Yep, just a loose wheel. So I popped the old right front drum off. I'm just going to go ahead and run these pads out just a little. I wasn't feeling much resistance when I spun it. Some guy commented and said that my pads were reversed, but it doesn't seem to affect the stoppability of the car, so I'm not messing with it. Also need to go out back and find a cap for this. Also going to hit the lug nut studs that have not had lug nuts for quite some time. Well, over here on the right rear, we got one completely missing. Brakes are nice and tight on the back. So the length appears to be right. Thread pitch is right. No clue where they came from, but I'm gonna go ahead and hammer one in there. So we got a full set of lug nuts and studs. Who'd have thunk it? So here's how I go about doing this. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. It's just the way I do it. Ooh, I need to pop a little thing back in there. Anyways, put me a little jam nut on there. Some kind of lubricants here. In this case, anti-seize. And then to get me a lug nut and put it on there backwards with a washer on it. Make sure you put it on there backwards so it don't eat up your deal there. And then I sand it. Make sure I got the right size deal there. I do. Let's see. Got about a 1/4 inch to go. Sixteenth of an inch. Almost there. She tight and back her off. And that, boys and girls, is good to go. But we're gonna go ahead and get the oil out of it. As you'll recall, when was it? Last spring, whenever that was, we got the rocker arm fixed. Did a heavy degrease on it. I just kind of want to see what the oil's gonna look like. Make sure we get anything that came loose then or during the process of running it after it sat for so many years. Well, it looks black. Well, I reckon it's time to change the alternator out. Bearing sounds like it's about to come through the front of the case. Got a replacement unit here. It just has the single groove alternator pulley on the front, so we're going to swap out for that double because I do plan on getting the air working on this guy. And we're going to go ahead and pop this guy off. Almost got that bolt out, but one minor inconvenience. That bolt runs right into this, so I reckon I'm gonna have to pop these bolts here loose, scoot the shroud over. You can see that this alternator has been changed on before. Yeah, that ought to give me enough room to get it out. Fortunately, the alternator is not going to fall on the ground. It's sitting in the cradle. We're going to put some looby-dooby on that before that goes back in. This guy up. A little rotate on it so I can get the clip out, which is disintegrated. Whoa there, killer. Would have been mad if I had a freshly painted engine. Old unit out. That one was easy. Little spacer off. And this thing's kind of bent. Fortunately, we're not using it. Maybe I get lucky. Come right off. Upon further inspection, all I'm doing is fighting a ham-fisted mechanic. Somebody dinged the inside of this when they swapped it out the last time. See, it totally spins freely, but it's catching the threads, so I'm gonna have to walk it out backwards. Easy peasy. This is an original GM part. Okay. Rain's really picking up out there. Okay. Zip this nut back on there. Gonna get it properly torqued. Alright. Get my torque wrench. Torqued. Now that the old alternator is squared away, we're going to go ahead and tackle some wiring things. If I can find them, I'm going to put the plug wires on. Bought them a year ago. Major thing I want to do, it's not that complicated, is tidy up some of this stuff that's like for this air compressor deal. Put some zip ties on them or whatever. And right here, you got a major factory soldered up joint that has no tape. It's a tape. It's dry rotted and fell off. Well, I'm going to go ahead and zip the carburetor off. The base gasket on the carburetor is leaking anyways. I don't recall putting one on there when I was trying to get the thing running. I noticed the old belt was hopping a little bit after I done the water pump, putting new belts on it. Look at that. Huge chunk of the old belt still stuck in the pulley. It's like a big old spacer belt hopping over that thing every time. I'm real observant. We got the old carburetor torn down. I told you it was leaking at this base gasket in between this here and this, where this little gasket here resides. But the 3 screws were pretty loose. Probably because these gaskets are pretty thick, and after they've soaked with fuel and sat around, they get a little thinner. So I probably could have got away with just tightening them up, but I didn't. I just got some new gaskets. I already had a kit. Here's another new gasket. So we're just throwing a few gaskets on it. I cleaned the bowl out. Didn't really have anything in there other than some of that corrosion that's in the bottom had kind of started going again, just due to sitting for another year. We got the old carburetor popped back together. New gaskets. Should be good to go. The spring is still intact, so that might be a good option. I'm gonna get my little torch there and heat it up and see if it does a little whoopie woo here. Now, if this little guy will move with heat applied to it, if this rises up, this should work, or we can make it work in its original application. So let's just try this. It's not very even heat, but I'm gonna see if this coil still has any capability to move. There's gasoline on it. You can see it keeps trying to light off. You see it moving a little. It's been laying outside in the cold, so. So that's what pulls the choke open when the intake warms up. So this thing works. I think I'm gonna try to clean this up, take that screw out, and probably get this thing operating just with some light machine oil or whatever. Got the old thing disassembled. I've got the spring cleaned up. It had a bunch of crap and dirt and debris stuck between the coils, which definitely wasn't helping. Got all that cleaned out, wire brushed it a little bit, and I've got it and the part that it is housed in soaking in penetrating oil. They both cleaned up pretty good. Now the rod, this little fella, and this mounting piece, I think I'm gonna run it through the blaster and get that cleaned up. I think we get it put back together, it'll work okay. Well, that's better. I wasn't planning on doing any engine painting, so I don't have any Buick engine red. So I guess I'll just go with the lighter color engine aluminum. It'll probably get ruined from fuel dripping on it at some point in time, but at least it'll be a lighter color. The only other thing I got is gloss black, and that'll look dumb. Well, I do believe we were already put this guy back on. Went ahead and plugged a PCV hose port. This was from a different model year car, I think a 68. I lubricated the choke shaft and everything related to it, so it does that real easy. Before, everything was stuck between that and all this stuff. I mean, you'd have to manually set it and it wouldn't flip back open. This guy, on the other hand, we put a quick coat of paint on it and do a little refinish on her. She seems to work pretty good. Don't know if it'll work right on the engine. If we have to, we can bend that little guy there. But I think we can go ahead and slap that back on. All right, well, for the first time in 37 years, this old girl is going to get new plates so she can legally be driven on the road. Also, we're going to find out what these other two plates are behind this 1986 unit. They're probably like late 70s, early 80s. Not sure why you would just stack plates. You got to take the screws out. Okay, screw number one. Screw number dos. What do we got behind door number one? 1980, March 1980. What do we got behind that? Oh, 1978. This, I think, was one of the last years where they actually had the year number stamped on the plate. That's pretty cool. Sweet. So we got a 78, 80. Now, a fun fact about Oklahoma back in the day, every year you had a new plate. You had a all new number and everything. I've seen that. I'm not sure if that was official or, fun fact, a lot of old registration I found on old Oklahoma cars, they had new plates issued every year. So I don't know if they just changed hands every year, but it looks like, from what I've seen, as long as these plates were dated, you got a new plate every year. So you'd get a 78, 79, 80, new plate, you know. And starting obviously in 1980, I guess that's when they started the stickers. This guy, same format, sticker goes on there every year. Well, the old carburetor is back on it, as is a new oil fill cap. The rubber had disintegrated on the old one. The choke assembly is connected. Now we're gonna see, prior to taking this all apart, you'd throttle it up there, crack the throttle open, and the choke plate would just stay there. You'd have to manually put it where you wanted, and then it would just stick there in that position. So if this works properly, I should crack the gas open. That should push the choke plate shut, or almost all the way shut. See what it does. Beautiful. That's what it's supposed to do. Well, for my next trick, I got to get down there on top of the steering column and replace this guy, which is your ignition switch, mounted way down there. Now, fun fact, the 1968 Skylark has the ignition switch right here in a bezel. 1969, they moved to the column lock style steering column, and the ignition switch is now here, activated by a rod way up there. Can't really tell, but it's where the column goes through the firewall. So that's a quick ID for a 68 or 69 GMA body. Chevelles, Le Mans, they're all the same, but this guy, 69, also deleted on the vent windows unless it's a convertible or like a four-door special or whatever. This is what I mean about 68s. Got the bezel there, the ignition key right there, as opposed to on the locking steering column. And the wing windows, which I love. I have also been in here just wiping down the dash. You can see right where I stopped. I did that side, the metal, and I have not done this side. So now I did the top of the steering column. Just trying to get her cleaned up so it's a little more presentable. Well, I do believe that it is time to go outside. Gotta hook the battery up. Got everything kind of put back together. And we had a cold spell move in last night. It's windy and like 35 outside. Also wanted to show you steering wheel wrap. Those cheap $15 soft things with a little cord wrapped around it. Well, fellas, I guess it's about that time. I'm super nervous, don't really know why. Let's face it, this is a high mileage engine that I don't expect much from. Every time I put adequate trans fluid levels in it, it pukes out on the ground there. So clearly we're gonna be putting some seals in it, but I guess we'll jump in and see if it'll drive. All right, well, sorry about the bouncing. She's gonna do what she's gonna do. I got no fancy stuff to hold the camera super still. I will not say she's running great. She's got, I suspect, 135,000 miles on her, and back in the day, that was a lot of miles. So the longer she sits here, she don't seem to be getting hot. So I guess we'll shoot her out there on the road and see what happens. First time in 38 or 39 years, somewhere along in there. I'll be considering it a win if we get back under our own power. So I know the timing is not right 100%, but fact of the matter is it's 35 degrees outside and super windy, and I really don't care to go out there and mess with it. I'm also planning on doing a Petronics conversion, so both of those things make it pointless really to fool with the timing. We're gonna turn around the yard real quick. Petronics works really well because it eliminates the points, it eliminates dwell adjustments, all of that sort of thing. The generator light is on while the engine is running and not while it's off, so it's not a diode going bad or something like that, but it is charging. Well, we're gonna make sure there's no traffic and I guess send it. First time in almost 4 decades. This is gonna be a relatively short trip. I have no idea if I've got 3 gears in the transmission or anything else. Let's go. That's second. I think my exhaust is rattling on something. No speedo, no surprise. Not sure what gear we're in, but we're going. Boy, she's a rattle clattery sounding thing. Got no carpet and got holes in the floor, so can't tell if we got 3rd gear or not. Fluid's a tiny bit low, like I said. Feels like we're in 2nd. Also sounds like we're driving in a sandstorm. My turnaround spot's right up here at this driveway. Third gear never has showed up yet. Oh, the brakes work fantastic. See if she tries to die on me. Something rattles like crazy turning corners. We're gonna back up and shoot her down towards the house. I guess I'm gonna manually shift through the gears just to see what we got going on. Whether we have a 3rd or we don't. It acts like it don't have one. So this should be 1st. All right. That's 2nd. She's on the road, guys, regardless of transmission status. Try 3rd. Acting like it don't have no 3rd. honestly would probably feel a little scary speed-wise. Alright, well, takeaway from long test drive number 1, she's got a lot of miles on her. She's still got some issues. It was fun. It was successful. We made it back. We're still running. Main problem is we got no third gear. Good news about that is I've been wanting to rebuild a turbo 350. Never done that before, or any transmission for that matter. So I'll get some experience there. Also, the exhaust sounds like it's fixing to depart the car. Something's rubbing on a drive shaft or a tire. So you can hear a pop every once in a while underneath that passenger floorboard, or what's left of it, which isn't much, but I guess a win's a win, right? We're not on fire.